Hi, Sam Arnold here, counselor at UTVA for students with the last names S through Z. We counselors are taking turns for doing homeroom, and I get the first whack at it. So let me lay out kind of my thoughts on how this lesson's going to go, or how I think it might. First of all, I want you to be prepared to take notes. Not on anything necessarily that I say, but my hope is that in the things that I share with you today, a few sparks will ignite inside yourself, and I want you to be ready to take those down and to write them down for yourself. All right, I'm gonna keep this story kind of short. There's a ton of details in it, but I want to just pull out the most important things. I went camping a few years ago with some young men for scouts, and I had an interaction with a bear, and it changed my life. It was highly impactful and influenced my paradigm, the way that I see the world, the way that that I see life and education and progress and success and all of these things. So the reason I bring this up is because I want you to start thinking about what success means to you, what school success means to you, and why school might be important to you from your own framework. You have your own life, you have your own influences in your life. I grew up in a home where education was very strongly pushed. And that was a positive thing generally. I have some learning disabilities or difficulties that made that a developmental experience for me, navigating that world of highly important to get an education and learning how to do it around the challenges that I experienced, and learning how to work hard to get through that. So overall, it was positive, but in life everything leaves its mark as well. So before I get into the rest of the bear story, let me just say, I wear this hat because I have my reasons for wearing this hat. The clothes that I wear, almost anytime you see me at home, I'm going to be wearing a black t-shirt. Really almost anytime you see me anywhere, I'll be wearing a black t-shirt and some shorts, because that's what I like to wear. And I have the flexibility of being able to do that. I do that because I know what I look like in a black t-shirt and shorts. I shave my head because I know what I look like without hair. I don't like to have to comb my hair and style it and all that. Some people care about that. I don't like spending energy doing that. That's my paradigm. That's my perspective and the framework that I bring into the world as I go out into the world. Anyway, that's me. I have my reasons for doing those weird things. And you have your reasons for doing your weird things. And we tend to hang out with people who are weird like us, right? We like being around people who have similar perspectives to what we do. So there's a specific type of framework that is Utah Virtual Academy. We operate in a framework. We have an approach to education that is different from regular brick and mortar schools, also different from other online schools, and it's just unique to us, and it works for a ton of people. That's why we're growing so much and progressing so much, and we have amazing teachers and staff, and we love you, we care about you, and we want you to be successful. We also want, in saying that, we want you to learn to define what that success looks like for you. We have a definition that is kind of put on us because we are a public school, and so we have to operate in that framework. And there are certain things that are going to help you to be successful in that framework of education. So I'll go through some of those. But I also just want you to know, to bring to your awareness as you're thinking, that there are alternatives out there to education. And if Utah Virtual Academy is not the best fit for you, talk to your counselor, because we might be able to help you to find something that is a better fit or a better path to what you actually want to do. If it's not ideal, but you don't really want to do something that might be more difficult or too different from your framework. Sometimes you have to strike a balance, and you have to do things just because it's part of the program, and that's part of life. So there are life lessons there. If you're ever wondering, what does this class have to do with my life, the class itself, the content in the class might not have a ton to do with what you're going to do with your life, but it might be a requirement for graduation. If you want to graduate from high school, then you might have to do that class, and just do it. That's it. If it's the choice that you're making to be a part of this framework and this education. So that's part of school success, is acknowledging where you fit, what you care about and why, and how you're going to go about being successful in whatever environment you're in. That's one of the things that I learned growing up with some learning difficulties, where I had to just comply with what was required, making some accommodations for myself, but sometimes I just worked really, really hard, and more than other people had to, and I did it that way. Sometimes that's what it takes. There are a lot more options out here in this world today than there were when I was coming up in education, and so I love alternative ideas as well. So like I said, if this isn't working for you, feel free to have a conversation with your counselors, with me, and we can talk about what the options are, so you can actually make the choice. This is what I want to do. I want to stay at Utah Virtual Academy because this is the right place for me. It may not be ideal in all aspects of my education, but it's the closest I'm going to get, and I'm picking it. Okay? I want you to be able to pick it so you don't feel like you have to be here, somebody's making you be here, so on and so forth. That may be partially true, but it's not the most important thing. I need you to own your education. You need you to own your education to really be successful. Okay? So that's important. The other thing, just throwing this out there, in school you don't actually take subjects, you take teachers, and we have the best teachers I have ever worked with at Utah Virtual Academy. And so if anything, if for nothing else, just knowing that you're going to have access to the best teachers and the best staff. Sometimes the programs don't work, sometimes the technology isn't perfect, but you are cared for here, and we do our best. And so there is that. All right, so I wanted to get some of that out. So back to this bear story. I was sleeping in a hammock. I did not have a sleeping bag. Probably not the best choice, but I'm kind of a weirdo that way. One of the things that I do, I have my reasons for doing things. And so I was in a hammock, no sleeping bag. If I'm going to camp, I want to push myself a little bit. So I went to bed. Everybody was pretty much asleep. It was, probably 2 or 3 in the morning. And the wind is blowing a little bit. The hammock that I'm in is moving a little bit. I'm not sleeping super great because, again, I didn't have a sleeping bag. I wasn't all that warm, but I was nodding off here and there. And then I heard a sound that made me freeze. The low moaning sound that a bear makes, and I knew what it was. I just froze, and I was kind of already curled up in the fetal position, my knees to my chest, because I was staying warm that way, holding my breath, trying to pay attention to what was going on. And sorry, my hand is shaking as I'm sharing this. And the bear starts to push me with its head and with its shoulders, pushing me and smelling me while I'm in this hammock. And there's all kinds of stuff going through my head, right? Not knowing what's going to happen, thinking about my family. It was really this kind of odd thing, because you hear these stories about near-death experiences, and you have your life replay in your mind, and you think about all these things that are important, and you wonder, am I ready to die? All of these things. I kind of had that experience, but it was mostly because I thought, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be thinking about in this type of an experience. I had this framework in my mind, right, that we already talked about. That this is what a near-death experience is supposed to be like. But being in that situation, every nudge, every sniff. I mean, I had the bear probing my body with its nose and pushing me around and just exploring. So it was really hard to be thinking about like deep things when any second I knew that I could die. And so it's too big of an experience for a lot of words, but a couple of the lessons that I have walked away with are, a couple of the questions that I had in my mind. I guess let me give you a little bit of context. I teach self-defense on the side. I love teaching self-defense and empowering people with the knowledge of what they possess inside already, and connecting them with that ability to protect themselves mentally, emotionally, and physically. I derive great value from being able to share those things with people. I practice martial arts, and I fight and spar and practice all of these skills multiple times a week, and I've done that for years. And so there's not very many situations that are like dangerous, life-threatening situations, person to person, that I haven't practiced working through and discovering how I would handle it and practicing handling it. But this was completely new. So part of my brain was working on that as well, and I had this question in my mind, could I fight a bear? If I did, what would that look like? Could I win? And I never really answered that question, but what I did find that broke me out of this cycle of fear, frozen, questioning, every nudge that I had, bringing me back into the moment. I was just back and forth like a ping pong ball in my mind. But when I thought about the people that were there with me in that experience and what would happen to them if I died, I wouldn't have any influence over what happened to them. I would lose my ability to influence their experience. I would lose my ability to protect them. And so I made a decision that regardless of whether or not I would be successful, I needed to be willing to take some action, and that reconnected me with my inner power. I would say what I connect with in the self-defense side of my life, and instead of being afraid, I was very angry. I was very angry, and I was tired of having this bear controlling me and being a victim of this situation. And I can't say why. I can't say that influenced anything, because I don't know, and I don't necessarily think that it did. But when I had that flip of a switch in my mind and in my body, and I connected with myself in that way, and I became willing to fight, the bear left. And it took me just a couple minutes. It felt like a couple minutes. It was probably just a few seconds of the quiet for me to get the physical ability to move and to get out of that hammock. I thought about those boys and the men that I was with, and I knew that I needed to get out, whatever might happen. And so I did. The bear had gone. I got one of the other leaders up that had a way of protecting us against the bear, and we went and we looked at everybody, and everybody was okay. So coming back to what I said were some of the lessons that I walked away with, I had this question: what am I willing to die for? Of course, that's the question that a lot of guys come to, like, I'm willing to die for this. What am I willing to fight for? What am I willing to live for? And that last question is what pulled me out of that hammock. It wasn't about the fight. It wasn't about being willing to die. All of that was part of it. But what really got me out of the hammock was a dedication to live, so that I could be there to have my influence on the world that I was living in that moment. I needed to have that influence, to have that ability to have that influence. Come what may, maybe I would have died. I didn't have to fight the bear. The bear left. But just having that desire to continue to have my influence available, the assets that I had available to help those people around me, is what got me out of the hammock. So in your life right now, you might still be, you're still discovering who you are. You're discovering what your place is in this world around you. You're discovering what your assets are, what makes you awesome, right? I like to use that term, go do awesome stuff. Just go do awesome stuff. Whatever's awesome to you, for you, go do that and expand your awesomeness, right? Expand your power, expand your skills, have your influence in the framework that you have right now. Be willing to expand the framework that you have right now. You have the ability to influence the world in a way that only you can. So just expand that awesomeness within you and go make it happen. School is part of that. It's part of your journey. Whether that's school here at UTVA, that's what you picked. That's why you're here. So make the most of it, or go do something else. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time just thinking, oh, it's so hard because my parents are making me go to school. All of us, yeah, you have that influence in your life because people care about you, want you to be successful, and they have their framework with what that looks like. But you have to define that for yourself and figure out what that framework is going to be for you and how you're going to use that to take charge of your life. As a parent, I love to see my kids taking responsibility for themselves and what they care about. I'm willing to even lighten up on the things that I care about, that I think are important, when I see them taking initiative with something that's important to them. So do that. Use your mentors, use your counselors, consult with us. You obviously, consult and work with your families and your parents and the people around you who love you. But just know that group of people who are around you who love you has grown because you're here at UTVA, and that's what we do. And we want you to be successful. We also, like I said at the beginning, we want you to start to define that success for yourself and figure out how to bridge the gap, if there is a gap, or just how to combine the worlds of what school success looks like to us, what school success looks like to you, and why you do it. Because when you connect with that, that's when you're going to be able to take charge. You're going to be able to work through the classes that are not your favorite or that you don't like. You're able to communicate with the teachers that you're not quite gelling with and find a way to work it out. Find the framework that works for you and make that framework work for you. And just go do awesome stuff. Okay, just go do awesome stuff. I want you to take a minute now and write down, if you haven't already, what does, just write down words. I don't care if you write sentences or whatever, just one word answers even. As many one word answers as you can. What does success look like to you? Okay? What does success look like to you? What is it going to take for you to be successful? Write it down. We're going to give you a couple minutes and then have you do a survey and share what your thoughts are, and that's your exit ticket. All right. Thanks, guys.